Video on the undercard coming up for George Groves versus Andre De Luisa. I want to talk about two fights on the undercard, both of which are the classic 50-50 matchup that the hardcore boxing fans really appreciate. And I've got to say, people that never like giving credit to Eddie Hearn, Matchroom, Sky Boxing, I've got to say, for a hardcore boxing fan, these two are good fights. You know, good fights. I'm talking John Ryder versus Sergey Khomitsky. I'm talking John Wayne Hibbert versus Tommy Martin. Let's start with the John Ryder fight. Now, John Ryder classically has been a guy I have not enjoyed watching. I haven't enjoyed watching him at all. He's someone who, for me, is a fighter with limited upside. Now, I picked against him in the Nick Blackwell fight, I picked against him in the Billy Joe Saunders fight, and to be honest with you, I've been critical of him even when he's been winning fights against lesser opposition. For me, he's a guy who isn't stylistically pleasing to watch. His boxing skills are limited. He's the kind of fighter who smothers his work a bit and gets involved into quite sort of messy, clumsy scraps as opposed to crisp, clean boxing. You know, when he lost to Nick Blackwell, I was kind of a bit worried that we'd be subjected to another 5 John Ryder 8-rounders on certain undercards. But fair play to Eddie Hearn, rather than dropping down levels completely, he's moved John Ryder up, he's moved him towards a bigger fight, and he's moved him to what, as I say, I class as a 50-50 matchup in Sergey Khomitsky. Now, it's one of those probably where it's not in Matchroom's interest or John Ryder's interest to step back massively. He's experienced enough. He stepped up to fight for British titles twice, and he's lost both times. You know, I guess they kind of need to roll the dice with him now. And if it's not going to work out for him winning these level of fights, then they probably want to know about that sooner rather than later. It's not that he needs the experience of dropping down to have another couple of 8-rounders against lower opposition. He had I think, was it a 4-rounder or a 6-rounder against Adam Jones, a 6-rounder I think it was last time out. So he's had a comeback fight. This isn't his first fight since Nick Blackwell. But yeah, fair play to them for chucking him in with Khomitsky, who is known as a real upsetter. You know, he's a guy who's fought at quite a high level. I mean, only 3 or 4 fights ago he was fighting Robert Stieglitz, and you know, Khomitsky is not an easy guy to beat. He's kind of got like an Oval Mackenzie style record in the sense that there's plenty of losses on his record, but as he's got older, he's become a really tough guy to beat, and you shouldn't underestimate him based on his record. You know, as I say, he fought Robert Stieglitz only recently, so he's been performing at a high level. Knocked out Frank Buglioni, knocked out Adam Etches, drew with Nick Blackwell, almost beat Martin Murray. You know, Martin Murray, who subsequently went on to have he went on to have a world title fight after that matchup. You know, so he's been mixing it with a real high level. You know, as I say, Nick Blackwell beat John Ryder well when they fought, and Nick Blackwell couldn't get the win against Khomitsky. So this is a tough fight. This really is a tough fight, and I think John Ryder is very beatable. Very beatable, in fact. You know, I don't think John Ryder is all that. And let me say this, you know, Khomitsky can be outboxed by an elite long-range boxer. You know, somebody like a Billy Joe Saunders, I would pick to deal with Khomitsky because, you know, at heart, Khomitsky can be outboxed. But if you stand in front of Khomitsky and have a bit of a scrap with him, then you can get yourself in real trouble, because he's someone who can drag you into the trenches. I mean, if you look at that Martin Murray versus Khomitsky fight, Martin Murray is someone who is a far classier boxer than Khomitsky. He should have really been able to school Khomitsky from the outside, but he got involved in a messy, gritty scrap, and I think the judges scored it something like 77-75 over 8 rounds to Martin Murray. So that became a real tight fight, and it was, you know, he's the kind of guy who can cause you problems like that. And my concern is John Ryder is also the kind of guy who gets involved in these close range, rough and tough, lots of holding battles. And I think that will play into Khomitsky's hands. You know, the thing with John Ryder, for me, is the the concerns are that he doesn't carry enough power. He's hittable, and his stamina. I mean, you'd have to say in that Nick Blackwell fight, that was one of the main reasons that he lost the fight, was just that his stamina completely collapsed. Now, Sergey Khomitsky is a fit guy. He went 12 rounds recently with an undefeated prospect. He's going to be there all night, and he's going to be making it awkward and difficult for John Ryder. And I think Sergey Khomitsky can beat John Ryder, actually. I think stylistically, with Ryder's tendency to get involved into close range scraps, messy fights, I think that's where Khomitsky wants to be. And I think Khomitsky, I'm more... I think there's like... Do you see John Ryder stopping Khomitsky? I don't. Would it be an amazing surprise if Khomitsky stopped John Ryder? Possibly not, possibly not. He stopped Buglioni and Etches. Why can't he stop John Ryder? I haven't seen anything from, Ryder to suggest that he's got more durability than those guys. I mean, Buglioni just went the distance in a world title fight, yet he couldn't stand up to Khomitsky, could he? So, I think there could be an upset on the cards here. Paddy Power, I've got John Ryder a 1-2 favourite, Khomitsky 13-8 against. I could see the upset there. I could see the upset. I think Khomitsky can win this fight by knockout, and I think he can win it by points. I'm just not sure that Ryder is clean enough and crisp enough to win this fight on points, and I don't think he's got the power. If you put a gun to my head, I'd probably pick Khomitsky. He's someone who turns up to fight. He turns up to go the distance. He's tough, real tough. I'm siding with Khomitsky in this fight. He's 41 years old now. He's got lots of losses on his record. He's come up short time and time again at top level. And, there will be a time where Khomitsky does get too old and he does have too many miles on the clock. He was outpointed vastly last time by an undefeated prospect. But John Ryder just doesn't convince me. He really doesn't convince me as a prospect at this level, and it ties in with him coming up short against Nick Blackwells and Saunderses of this world. So I'm predicting an upset here. I really am, and I think I don't take any pleasure in saying this just because I don't like him stylistically. I'm sure he's a nice guy, but I think it's going to be tough times for John Ryder if he were to lose this fight. But I think it's a necessary fight for them to take to roll the dice with him at this stage. Let's talk John Wayne Hibbert versus Tommy Martin. Tommy Martin is up and coming prospect. I think he's something like 13-0, and he's a nice boxer. He's stylish. He's smart in the ring. He's been in with a decent level of opposition at like English level. Matty Chew, Ricky Boylan, I guess, is probably the biggest name on his resume. And he's done really nicely against those guys. This guy can box. John Wayne Hibbert is a step up, though. He's a real step up. John Wayne Hibbert's mixed it at a much higher level, as we know. Dave Ryan, for example. Obviously, I think they've had 3 fights now, and they've all been very, very tight fights. And John Wayne Hibbert is the more experienced guy. He's the older guy. Tommy Martin's only 21, a relative youngster. I also think John Wayne Hibbert may be the bigger puncher in this fight. Tommy Martin, very stylish, not much power. John Wayne Hibbert, he can hurt opponents. I remember being really impressed with John Wayne Hibbert in the Tyler Goodjohn fight. That fight, I'd picked Tyler Goodjohn to win. Goodjohn was coming off the back of a nice win against a decent opponent. Might have been Ricky Boylan, actually. And I thought Tyler Goodjohn was going to go out and beat John Wayne Hibbert. But John Wayne Hibbert destroyed him that night. Outboxed him. Too much power. Goodjohn couldn't live with him. And this is a real test for Tommy Martin. With the bookmakers, again, Paddy Power. Tommy Martin is a 4-9 favourite. John Wayne Hibbert's 7-4. Now, for me, this is a no-bet fight. But let me tell you this. I would not be touching Tommy Martin with a barge pole at 4-9 on. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying Tommy Martin's going to lose. I'm just saying 4-9 is a ridiculous pricing here. If John Wayne Hibbert takes Tommy Martin into deep water, this could be a real test. John Wayne Hibbert's performed at a much higher level than any of Tommy Martin's previous opponents. John Wayne Hibbert punches harder than any of the previous opponents. And whilst John Wayne Hibbert can be stopped himself, he can be hurt in fights and dropped in fights, as we saw against Dave Warren. I'm not sure Tommy Martin's necessarily got real big power to change a fight at this level. So this is a close matchup. I think the bookmakers have this one slightly wide on the scorecards, actually. Slightly wide. From a value perspective, if I had to place a bet, I'd be with John Wayne Hibbert rather than Tommy Martin, from a pure value betting perspective. In terms of my prediction for the fight, that's tough. I think I would have to side with Tommy Martin. Tommy Martin looks to have a higher upside than John Wayne Hibbert. I mean, looking like you've got a high upside is all well and good. The test is in the ring, and we'll see it this Saturday. But for me, he's a smarter boxer. I know John Wayne Hibbert's saying he's had a great camp and he's in perfect shape. For me, John Wayne Hibbert at times has come into fights slightly out of shape. He has been worn down in fights before, and he probably isn't as slicker, skillful boxer as Tommy Martin has the potential to be. Let me put it this way: if this fight goes to the late rounds, gets to deep water, who am I more confident will have the skills and fundamentals to pick up the late rounds in a tight fight? Probably Tommy Martin. But Tommy Martin's got to survive a storm here, because John Wayne Hibbert's I see him as a bigger guy, a more powerful guy, harder puncher, possibly the stronger man. Tommy Martin's only 21, he's still a boy. He could be pushed around a bit in there by John Wayne Hibbert, and he's not necessarily got that power to keep Wayne Hibbert off him. So this is a tough fight. I'm going to lean slightly to Tommy Martin. Undefeated, high upside, good boxing skills, slick. I think Tommy Martin has the potential to outbox John Wayne Hibbert. But for me, it's a real 50-50 fight, and the bookmakers have got this wide. These two fights are hard to call. I'm going Tommy Martin and I'm going Sergey Khomitsky. Let me know your thoughts. Who are you picking for these two fights? If you've enjoyed this video, please give me the thumbs up. Do subscribe to the channel. I will post post-fight reviews afterwards, and I'll be sure to give credit to the opponents if I've got this one wrong. Let me know your thoughts. Thanks for watching.